How do we prepare and how do we give magnesium sulfate? So magnesium sulfate is a drug that is used in many conditions, but for this case we are going to discuss it, how we use it in pre-eclampsia and eclampsia. I'm not going to go into details what is eclampsia, what is pre-eclampsia. That will be another video. But now, when you are giving magnesium sulfate, let me begin like this. We give, the loading dose is 14 grams of magnesium sulfate. Remember, when they are selling this magnesium sulfate, it is 5 grams per 10 mils. 5 grams per 10 mils, meaning each meal, so each meal is 0.5 grams. Now, we say that we give magnesium sulfate as 14 grams. But I said the ampule of magnesium sulfate has 5 grams per 10 mils, and it is 50%. It is sold as 50%. Now, 14 grams of magnesium sulfate, we first give 4 grams of 20% magnesium sulfate IV in the vein over 20 minutes. Or using what we call the 20-20 rule. I will not explain that now. Then the remaining 10 grams are given as, we give 10 grams in the muscle as 50%, where we divide them 5 grams on each bum. 5 grams on each bum. But remember, each 5 grams, we add there 1 mil of lignocaine because of the pain. So the question is, here it is easy. What we do, we just get a full ampule of 5 grams, we give on each bottle. We get a full ampule, we give on another bottle. Undiluted, that is 50%. But now IV is supposed to be diluted because we need the 20% of magnesium sulfate. So what you do, very simple, I'm not going into deep calculations. We just use what we call the 2-to-3 ratio when we are preparing 20%. Meaning that every 2 mils of magnesium sulfate, 50%, goes with 3 mils of water for injection. But this time I want 4 grams, but each ampule has 5 grams. So just remove 2 mils, you are going to remain with the 8 mils. And in those 8 mils of magnesium sulfate, the 50%, add in 12 mils of water for injection. The final solution will be 20%. 4 grams of 20%. What have I said? Get 80 mils of 50% magnesium, this is Mg sulfate. Add 12 mils of water for injection. And at the end, you will have 20 mils of solution. And this solution will be 4 grams of 20% magnesium sulfate. And this is what we are going to give as IV. This is 20 mils. Slow bolus over 20 minutes. Now, we do this in eclampsia, pre-eclampsia, and we do this even in eclampsia. But the only difference in eclampsia, after doing this, we have what we call a maintenance dose. Now, what is a maintenance dose after this loading dose in eclampsia? Remember, the goal in eclampsia is to control or stop convulsions. And the goal in pre-eclampsia is to avoid as much as possible for us to get convulsions. Now, the maintenance dose, however, it has its own rules. One, if the facility has the capacity, continue with the maintenance dose after 4 hours from the loading dose. Only if there's no signs of magnesium toxicity. That means the urine output is greater than 100 mils in 4 hours. Respiration rate is greater than 16 per minute, the patellar reflex or knee jerk are present. There you can continue with the maintenance dose. And the maintenance dose is 5 grams it is 5 grams of 50%. I repeat, maintenance dose, we give magnesium sulfate 5 grams IM, that is 10 mils of magnesium sulfate 50% solution every 4 hours in alternate bottles for 24 hours from the time of the loading dose or after the last conversion, whichever comes first. Always remember to add 1 mil of lignocaine because it is very painful. That's the only difference with when you're giving in preeclampsia and when you're giving in eclampsia. We always have to use a maintenance dose in eclampsia.